Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sando and today I'll be trying out a very exciting digital to analog converter. Now I have already tried quite a few R-2R ladder DACs by now, but I feel that today's unit tops them all when it comes to sound performance, but especially when trying to connect me with my music. This one is called Denafrips Terminator Plus and its story has just begun. Design-wise, I never seen a bigger DAC in my life. Just look at it, it's simply massive, it's over the top. You get thick aluminum plates and a gorgeous looking unit. It's of course built like a tank and it feels like one when trying to rearrange it on the table. While it sounds like a diva after a few hours of warm-up, it fights in the heavyweight category with its 19 kilo body weight. This thing isn't only the heaviest DAC I've tested around here, but the heaviest metal box that I've ever received for testing. Its build quality is simply superb. As for controls, from left to right you have input selectors, mute, on-off, non-oversampling/oversampling button, phase and mode button. On its back, every possible digital input is present as USB, coaxial, optical, 2 AAC inputs, 3 I2S inputs via HDMI and Ethernet, and 2 BNC clock inputs, just in case a Denafrips Gaia DDC will hop on your shopping list. On the analog side, you have your usual RCA and XLR outputs that are providing a fixed voltage output. As for tech inside it, in an R-2R ladder DAC, the signal is being converted from digital to analog by the help of hundreds of resistors that are merging into 2 or 4 ladders. Now this one has 4 ladders because this is a fully balanced unit. The higher the precision of those resistors means that a higher resolution can be obtained from the ladder. Denafrips is acquiring hundreds of such resistors, but the best ones that achieve a precision of 0.005% are being used in the Terminator and Venus series, which is basically their best. The second most important part of a DAC are the clocks that are being used that are so crucial for the timing of the DAC. This one is equipped with oven-controlled OCXO clocks. These are extremely expensive and specially tailored for ultra high-end audio applications. From hundreds of DACs that I've tested before it, it has the highest precision clocks that I've ever seen. Last but not least, we are dealing with a state-of-the-art power supply that occupies the wall lower floor of the unit. It's an encapsulated and linear power supply that is shielded by a thick steel plate. Dual O-core transformers provide clean power to the most critical parts of its digital and analog sections, and there are several regulation and filtering stages by some of the best current production capacitors. Okay folks, this is pretty much it and I'm ready to hit some eardrums. Sound-wise, before going deep with plenty of sound impressions, I will just mention that I believe I just experienced one of the most spacious, airy, big, well-spread sound that I had the pleasure of hearing at my place. After adding a Travomatic Primavera on top of this one and trying a bunch of open back headphones, the change was so immediate, it was so big that some of my headphones were simply unrecognizable. For example, Odyssey LCD5, I like quite a few things about them, but I simply dislike their soundstage capabilities. They sound more like inside my head, they have this walnut type of soundstage, they sound more like semi-open headphones, something like that. But after connecting them to the Terminator Plus and driving that Travomatic Primavera, the change was so spectacular, so big. It was a 180-degree turn, so everything I just said about LCD5 I just want to take back, because there was more bass, more mid-range, less treble each, and of course the soundstage was simply much bigger. And those KEF reference 1, those white ones, white princesses, if I'm connecting them to the Terminator Plus and my bigger ones, reference 3 to my usual Gold Note Destin Plus, then they sound almost the same when it comes to spaciousness, when it comes to soundstage. So This one is very impressive in terms of layering, depth, imaging, soundstage, absolutely amazing. Secondly, this is a very smooth, easygoing, relaxing type of digital to analog converter that completely removes digital glare. So you can go as loud as you please, you can blast your eardrums, you can blast your windows, and still it will not deliver you any hardness, any harshness in the treble. That will not happen with the Terminator Plus. I remember clearly trying some lower grade Denafrips DACs as Aries, as Venus, and I was not that impressed when it comes to speed. Those weren't that fast sounding. Aries was rounding the frequency extremes. There was less upper treble, less sub bass. It was not that impressive in there. It was not that fast sounding. Venus was much clearer. It was much punchier, much more dynamic, but it was not that speedy sounding. But I believe that Terminator Plus is simply a very different beast altogether. So it's much cleaner, more detailed, it's faster, it's more impactful in the bass, and of course it never rounds the frequency response. There is as much bass, mid-range and treble as you please, but there's no digital glare whatsoever. The amount of information that comes forward is actually quite staggering, and as much as I like that Musician Aquarius and that yummy sounding Rockna Wavelight, this one goes a little higher, delivering just a clearer and a punchier and a faster overall performance. If you want to use this one in a loudspeaker setup, you have two options. Either going with an integrated amplifier, because this one doesn't have a volume control, or you can go with a preamplifier followed by a power amplifier, or 2 units in my case. So lacking a preamplifier is actually no big deal, because most of the DACs that I tried around here, they didn't have actual line amplifier circuits, with the exception of 2 units. Those were Matrix Audio Element X and the Gold Note Destin Plus that I'm still using. And all others were using very simple digital attenuation techniques that was killing some dynamics, some transients. Those didn't work that well directly with power amplifiers. And if I would choose a DAC without a volume control versus one with a mediocre volume control, then I'll be using something like this. And of course, there are many preamplifiers to choose from affordable ones like topping Pre-90 to high-end, ultra revealing ones like Benchmark HP4. I believe that their Class A preamplifiers should work simply amazing with this one. You can go with musical sounding ones like all tube, like hybrid preamplifiers. Of course, the sky and your wallet is pretty much the limit with something like this. KF reference aluminum woofers are known to be dead neutral, speedy, impactful, but also revealing sounding. They need a little bit of help in the mid-range department, adding some life in there. And this is where I believe that Terminator Plus came to the rescue. Those AHB2 power amplifiers are also dead neutral, ultra revealing, very clean sounding, but straight as a line. Meaning that I can beautify my music only with the help of a source and of a preamplifier. So after adding this one, Musician Monoceros and those AHB2, I felt that my loudspeakers were exactly as sparkly up top, but more bass was brought to the table, especially those reference one were more engaging sounding, more thumpier, punchier sounding. And of course the mid-range was more present, it was more smoother, more calmer, more easier going. The warmth and the naturalness that was coming from those metallic drivers was simply through the roof. And never have believed that my KF reference could sound so smooth, so relaxed, with the right selection of music and electronics. When it comes to transients, making super fast sounding R-to-R ladder DACs is way more complicated compared to chip-based Delta Sigma converters, because the signal path is much longer, and of course every single component degrades the sound and the speed of sound as well, their cleanness. So use lower grade components, and of course you'll be bottlenecking its dynamic range, its transient response. But of course everything is possible. You can use the highest grade resistors, you can use the best in class clocks, better capacitors, an overkill power supply. And you know what? Everything is already in here in the Terminator Plus. So of course this is a very different beast compared to everything else that they are making. With all respect to Denafrips, I was not that impressed with the Aries when listening to some electronica music. It was not fast, it was not that impactful. Venus was considerably more impactful, but it was not going super fast. But this one is simply a different animal altogether, so it doesn't have such constraints anymore. This is a wild Mustang, so it goes fast. It punches very impressively in the chest with loudspeakers, and of course it punches amazingly in my eardrums with headphones. As far as R-2R ladder DACs are being concerned, I believe that this one just took the spot as the hardest slumming, impressing Transient Response not as myself. Now, in absolute terms, I still believe that the best Delta Sigma DACs are slightly faster than this one, and this one will outplay them when it comes to raw slam and body kicks. Maybe I'm not getting the last drop of information, maybe I'm not getting the fastest Transient Response, but when portraying a big picture in front of me, I believe that Terminator Plus does that on a higher level compared to any other converter that I tried before. Now, in absolute terms, in terms of soundstage, depth, and imaging, this one stays on the first place, followed by Rockna Wavelight, by Musician Aquarius, by Audio GDR7, Denafrips Venus, and by everything else. So yeah, if you want soundstage, depth, imaging, all those combined, this one is very impressive. Now, as I've said, after adding that Trafomatic Primavera, which by the way gives a huge helping hand, that's an amazing amplifier, I felt that the sounds with really well-made headphones are not hovering around my head anymore, but are wrapping my body entirely, so I could pick them up from anywhere. That was quite an experience with something like HD800S. Well, these shouldn't come as a surprise. As I was saying, the biggest units that I've tried were always R-2R ladder DACs, and I really don't understand why, because I've experienced all discrete output stages, over-engineered power supplies, with FPGA DACs, with Delta Sigma DACs, and I really don't know why it sounds that big, but it sounds exactly as it looks. It sounds huge. When it comes to detail retrieval, transparency, when it comes to cleanness, I believe that you shouldn't get an endgame R-2R ladder DAC for this reason alone, because you can get a very similar performance at much less with chip-based converters. Now, making transparent and uber detailed sounding R-2R ladder DACs is actually very complicated and very costly, because you'll be slashing bits of information at every step of that ladder. If you are using lower grade resistors, you'll be slashing more information at each and every step, meaning that many entry-level R-2R DACs are not even reaching 16-bit of dynamic range. And when people are telling me that their entry-level R-2R ladder DACs is super transparent, super clean, I'm having a good laugh, I'm smiling back, because I know that's not really the truth. But this one is actually a very different animal. It plays in the big boy category. It's almost pointless telling you how clean and how detailed it was sounding, because it was always pushing forward that macro, that micro details, and it wasn't really a challenge focusing on all those details that were playing around me. So yeah, this is a highly detailed sounding digital to analog converter. Later on, I decided adding Denafrips Gaia DDC into the mix. So this is not your regular digital to digital converter, it's something else. It's one of the best, if not really the best DDC that money could buy. It's really very good. Now, on its own, Terminator Plus, as I was saying, is already quite transparent, clean sounding, noiseless, distortion free, but after adding this one in between the Terminator and my PC, I felt that all those musical notes were sharper, clearer sounding, leading edges were improved, and all those micro details just took a few steps forward into the light. So I'd say that the improvement was at around 15%. It's hard to say by numbers, but somewhere around here. The change was actually quite immediate. I didn't need some time to readjust. It was just simply clearer sounding. And everything that I've said about the best-in-class Delta Sigma converters in terms of transparency and detail retrieval was simply moved to the Terminator Plus. It was from clean and transparent, it was uber clean, uber transparent. I'll be parting ways with the Terminator Plus very, very soon. So thank you, Alden, for lending me this one. Much appreciated. But I'm seriously thinking on buying this one because the change was immediate, it was real, and it works with pretty much every DAC out there. I simply refuse using my DACs via a USB connection anymore. As for frequency response, Terminator provides a thick, deep-reaching but also powerful bass delivery, much more powerful compared to the Aries or Venus converters. Simply add a Transient Response monster amplifier or a hard slamming amplifier like a Trafomatic Primavera or AHB2 by Benchmark and you'll be in bass heaven in no time. So yeah, it fights in the heavyweight category with that kind of bass. It provides some painful, punches below the belt, but it's not really the fastest type of bass. It's not that fast sounding like Delta Sigma converters. So yeah, you are getting lots of authority in the bass, at the cost of slightly mellower bass delivery. But you can certainly improve that with that Denafrips Gaia DDC. It's not a surprise to anyone that R-2R DACs have a soul-grabbing mid-range, a fuller and a denser tonality in here. So if you are hunting for a richer tonality in the mid-range, for a soul-grabbing experience at the mid-range, I believe that from all digital to analog conversion techniques, R-2R is the way to go, especially if they have non-oversampling modes. Now, compared to lower-grade Denafrips units and compared to generally to lower-grade R-2R DACs, I believe that this one provides not only higher mid-range quantity but also quality, because everything that's in there, so voices, string-based instruments felt more tactile, clearer sounding. There was more definition in there. You cannot remain unimpressed with that sweeter, bolder and smoother sounding mid-range compared to lower grade Denafrips units. Usually Treble feels as a double-edged sword with units like this, because on one hand you are getting that grain-free performance, on the other hand you are losing some definition, some extension in the treble. But that is no longer the case with their best unit, so this is a no compromise, state-of-the-art DAC. So there is as much definition, as much extension. I can clearly hear that shimmer and vibration of cymbals, of bells, so it's very extended, very clean sounding in the treble. I could listen even to bright sounding headphones, to neutral sounding loudspeakers all day long. I could go even louder, and of course I would never get bothered by that treble information. I'm not getting treble roll-offs past top octave, as it goes for a detailed but non-aggressive treble delivery. As for my conclusions, Terminator Plus doesn't have a preamp, it doesn't have a remote control, it's not the most technical sounding unit, it's not the fastest, it's not the cleanest sounding DAC out there, but it's the best goosebump generator that I've experienced in years. And if you are after similar emotional experiences, hefty bass, full-bodied mid-range, clear but inoffensive trebles, then it's a very easy recommendation to make. It might look as expensive at first, but considering all the tech inside it and its easy-to-like sound signature, it's my pleasure awarding it with my highest gold award. It was fully deserved. Alright guys, my full in-depth review can be found below. Please check it out, it's much longer than this one. In case you want to support this channel, please subscribe to it. And as usual, listen to my tunes, be positive, and I'll see you around. Cheers!